If your goal was to make the player feel like they were trapped in hell, you achieved it in full. You knocked Torghast and the Maw absolutely out of the park on that. Hey guys, I want to actually edit this in at the start because I think that this is necessary to say for this type of video. This is a video specifically on why I quit. I'm thinking, gonna be a second video that I'm gonna do explicitly on some of the great things about WoW, because there are some really strong, good points about it. But this video is actually on why I quit. I just felt that it was very necessary to say this at the start because I don't want people to like misconstrue that this is just hate or this or that. Like, there are a lot of good things. Like, one thing is I actually really loved the leveling experience through Warlords of Draenor because I took so many alts through it. But again, not the point of this video, and I just want to preface this with this disclaimer. So hey guys, and welcome to my channel. Timestamps are in the description if you care about just a particular section. Disclaimer is going to be in the description and comments because I don't want to bloat this video. It's already long enough. But the too long didn't read version is I feel like everyone else has really gone their say of why they quit. And I don't want to continue to intentionally silence my own opinions on it, which I felt really what I'm going to express in this video for past few months. Just to like express what I did, my experience of World of Warcraft, I tried really hard to get into it, so much so that I maxed every single healer in the game, and I did take them to endgame content in some form or another, eventually landing on Disc Priest as a main. I did a ton of DPS as, say, Balanced Druid. I tried Windwalker Monk, Affliction Warlock, Elemental Shaman, and most notably actually Beastmaster, especially because Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have a Beastmaster in it, and so that was extremely fun to me in spite of people telling me that I'm garbage for playing it, including literally being mocked in raids for playing it. It's just like, it sucked at the time, but it's like kind of in hindsight, it's like, I just want to play something new, dude. I can't get that in Final Fantasy XIV, and so why do you need to dump on me for that? It was just different, and so I was having fun. Why is that? I don't know. That was horrible, apparently. I went into heroic raids. I had a taste of mythic raiding. Not much, but I did have a taste of it. I did mythic plus 14s commonly, which is considered low in the community, but to me, that was very high, especially as a newer player. I bought 226 item level gear off of the auction house for the LOLs. I saw what a WoW token was, and so much more. Heck, I might do a video on that in the near future. But a notable disclaimer to all of this is that my boyfriend, Neymett, who I've been friends with for literally a decade, was a healing officer, and so I literally had many opportunities afforded to me that most players would never have afforded, literally from me, the guild's healing officer. I felt funny even saying that. But I did go super hardcore into trying World of Warcraft a few months prior to the Shadowlands expansion, and then when Shadowlands hit, I really went berserk on the content. So when I say that I really did give World of Warcraft a fair shake, I don't think that is invalid or wrong for me to say. I came to it as a Final Fantasy XIV quote-unquote refugee, just wanting to try new things and get new experiences, and did my best. And so this video is specifically on why I quit World of Warcraft and why I myself don't see myself coming back. I mean, everyone else has had their chance to talk, but I want to talk about my own personal reasons. So I'm just organized it kind of into talking points. Timestamps are in the description just as a reminder if you want to skip ahead. I do want to say, prior to saying a single point, is that all of these points on their own could easily be a 30-minute video on just that point, so I hope people can forgive me for sparing some details. Which brings me to the first point, which is the community. I do want to say that there are so many good actors in the World of Warcraft community that I think people paint the entire community as a whole as being toxic, which is really unfair to these people. There are people willing and trying to help others the best that they can, and it really does show. I do need to say there are some shining stars that you should absolutely give credit to in the community. On the flip side, it can really be as bad as they say. I went into raids where I had the GM literally yelling at me and accusing me of being stupid, asking me if I can see colors and shapes, and going on a rant about how it was unacceptable for me to not immediately understand the mechanics even though they were progging it for a while. But that was literally my first time in heroic raiding, and we were in Stone Legion Generals, and it was the blade mechanic, and it was a little overwhelming seeing it the first few times. Remember, I'm also in a different game with different geometry. The controls are slightly different. I mean, anyone coming from like 14 to WoW, I found that the controls were a little bit more loose. I don't really know how to describe it, but there was definitely a learning curve. It was like, could I acknowledge a mechanic? Yes, and it'd be in my brain, and then like I try and move like I would in 14, and it just didn't really translate the same, which can't see colors and shapes is what the end result was, I guess. But moving on, there is also this perception that if you aren't the best, then you're the worst. Like, can a Beastmaster Hunter, which I enjoyed a lot because it was different from anything I can play in 14, but can a Beastmaster Hunter clear 14s? Like, plus 14s? 100%. Beyond any shadow of a doubt, it can. But Beastmaster isn't a fire mage or balance druid, and hence it is a piece of garbage that should be ejected from the party at the same speed as the 12 Taco Bell burritos Neymett ate last night. And if you make a mistake in these keys, I've seen people literally flat out leave groups, even when we can very, very easily time the key. It's like in the middle of the run, everything was smoothly, but then just one thing went wrong, and then just poop, gone. And this led to a lot of constant frustration and anxiety on my part. Like, if a tank or a healer leaves a party, there's no real way to make up for it. If a DPS does, that alone is hard enough, but a tank or a healer, oh my gosh. Like, you can't make up for that, and there's not really anyone else that can come in. And the key is so-called bricked, a term that I sadly got intimately familiar with. There were more examples like petty arguments, weird infighting, literally, and I should be like quite, like literally racial slurs. I'll just say it outright. Literally in the game, racial slurs. And there was very clear rampant homophobia to the point where I never, ever brought up my thing to anyone, which people will immediately be like, well, excuse me, why would you ever bring it up? That's no one's business. Why are you bringing that up? What does that have to do with the video game? Okay, calm down. And fact is, on the list of things that I'd say about myself to describe myself, gay would be like on line 20, if even that. Before it, it'd be like scientist, someone that loves research. I love neuroscience, brains, robots. I am obsessed with machine learning and data. I am a humanitarian, obsessed with pizza. I think horror movies are amazing. I really like Christmas. I am very much a family person. I care deeply about my family. So there's just a long list of things before gay. So no, before you come at me with that, in my case, like, I don't know, like, I don't even think my channel slaps you across the face with it. I don't really bring it up. To me, no one cares, and ultimately, me, I just want to be treated the same as everyone else. I don't want to be treated as, like, more than or anything. Like, I just really want to be able to live my life and be happy, which I don't think is different than anyone else. I don't think that makes me special. I think that makes me very boring, bland, and if you wanted someone who, like, cranked up the hot sauce, you're at the wrong channel. I am very boring. But kind of circling back to why this is a key problem is, like, when you do bring it up, when you have, like, everyone talking about couples and holidays or something like that, like, many more examples than this, but it's so natural for someone to say, oh, I'm going hiking with my girlfriend. But if you say even, like, I'm hiking with my partner, then everyone's like, oh my god, you said partner, are you the gay? And that's saying partner, not even boyfriend. So, like, what am I meant to do? Am I meant to call Neymett a girl with his beard and shoulder span? I can't say that wouldn't be... I just... Ultimately, this leads me to just flat out not engaging with this at all, which really disintegrated a huge part of why I even play MMORPGs, the community. And that's what I have said time and time again on why I am asked why I do what I do, which is the community. And that was so severely damaged in World of Warcraft that I literally was sitting there trying to make this game work, trying my best to make it happen and do raid in this, and I was asking myself, like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I even playing this? Like, should I just be playing Cyberpunk or some other single player game? Which, I'm gonna be blunt, when you have someone ask that question, then you've really failed to make an MMORPG. It should be as clean cut as that. But I continue to try and make it work. But this point on its own, just saying that should be it for anyone. But I did try to make it work. So video is going to continue on because I have a lot more to say. Second point is much shorter than the first. It's PvP. People really convinced me and got me extremely excited for PvP in World of Warcraft and convinced me that it's great. And honestly, they were so full of it. When I actually went to try it, not at all true. Not at all, in my opinion, true. I know people will disagree with me, and that is A-okay. I actually do 100% support your ability to disagree. Like, that's what really fuels things moving forward, is diversity of what people think. I'm totally good with that. But for me, when I tried World of Warcraft PvP, I was so massively and incredibly unimpressed. I was so let down because people set it up to this, like, unreachable level, and then it could never reach that. But then it was even worse than that. Even worse. Like, take yourself down from that initial high pedestal and then knock it down like 29 billion points from there. And I do want to say, are there good points to the systems of PvP in there? Yes. But those good points are lost when you have people that are so-called unranked. That's what I was called, because I never really made it to 1400, and I spent literally hours and hours for days trying to even break 1400. It was brutal. But when you are in so-called unranked, 220 plus item level players are throughout it, and it was even close to the start of the expansion. There were people with this kind of item level, and they, in quote-unquote unranked, absolutely hosed us. What was I going to do in, like, 170 or so item level? Like, as an 170 item level Andy Resto Druid against that? I mean, people can argue gear should be a factor, but I'm actually going to completely disagree with you. If you want challenging, engaging, skill-based PvP, why are you bringing in these other factors that aren't skill-based? This inherently makes it so that's not skill-based. So when you tell me PvP in World of Warcraft is skill-based, I'm like, no. If everyone is on the same playing field, yes, but they aren't on the same playing field. They aren't. So it's not skill-based. It's not. And I mean, people are going to dislike that, but I'm sorry. When I went into PvP, it was insane. It's just like, how can you tell me that it is skill-based when you have people taking in full, like, 220 plus raid level gear into low, quote-unquote, unranked? It's not even ranked. It's not even low rank. It's literally unranked, where I'm just wanting to hit 1400 so that I can start to have some gear upgrades for PvP gear. It was so incredibly unbalanced that me and Neymett, and he's good at PvP, he literally has the Arena Master title. It's just so imbalanced that I remember at points I literally would swear at the top of my lungs in frustration. And that's not even getting into class balance, like Rogue and Fire Mage. Good luck. So balance is my third point, and I said at the start I want to play Beastmaster Hunter because it was unique. I don't have anything like that in 14. Nothing at all. It was so unique. I wanted to do Beastmaster. I could train pets in the open world. I could have a stable. I could play with a bow or like a machinist weapon and basically be like a ranged DPS in 14, which is something that I enjoy so much in 14. And there were new mechanics. I really enjoyed being able to buff the pets. I know Bestial Wrath and then the Barb Shot upkeep isn't necessarily the most engaging thing, but I liked it. I really liked it. And aside from community toxicity towards it and literally being ridiculed and being called a, censoring it, poop lord for playing it, I loved it. Pets were fun and it was so flavorful and I loved it. I mean, I remember how excited I was when I got Elegon or when I got the brand new Kodo from the one Warlords of Draenor instance. What about the Valkyrie, like the tentacle, like super fast pet that would apply slow on people. It was so fun and flavorful. I loved it. But on top of community perception, which dumped on it, Beastmaster had horrible balancing issues. Even their best legendary at the time that I was forced to craft that I didn't want to do. I want to buff my pet because it's like I'm playing a pet class. Let me play the pet class. Like, this is fun to me. But I was forced to craft a legendary that was a lame tar trap into a flare that people, like, the tanks always seemed to have this, like, hatred of me where they would drag mobs out of it. And it was just super janky and super frustrating. And honestly, if the legendary makes it past, like, I would turn this into a single button because this was just so the timings were weird. It made it unfun. It was beyond janky. It was obviously doable, but it was so unfun. It didn't add anything. It was just like, oh, now I have another AoE damage. And I mean, yeah, you could argue, well, now I just have another pet buff. But I mean, there's a difference. It's just like, how much cognitive energy am I doing into placing that tar trap, waiting the right amount of time? Because if you set off your flare too quick, wouldn't register. I got met with that one enough, and that made things a little tricky. Yeah, you could do mouse over macros. Like, trust me, I tried it all. But it was not fun. But, how to say it? Even with all of this, the core of the Beastmaster's numbers were literally the lowest. Like, literally the lowest, I think, for a while there. Which made it so that I would actively be berated and called trash and an IQ below 65. You know the translation of that. I'm not going to say that on my channel. I would be called a brainlet or so much more on the regular, just quote-unquote casual joking around. Yeah, I mean, it's so casual joking around. It wasn't a joke by a lot of people. Some people were like, wow, of course, the Final Fantasy XIV players, like... playing Beastmaster is so shocking, right? it was garbage. But add that on top of the combination towards the meta and how Beastmaster's numbers were lower. So I was constantly being dumped on. It got to the point where it was so unfun to log on and play that I literally moved on to Balanced Druid because I wanted to make this game work. Significantly less fun for me, significantly, because Balanced Druid isn't offering me something new. I can get Balanced Druid in multiple flavors in 14. And so, really, at the end of the day, the legendary for Balanced Druid was also unfun for me. The Covenant for it was always Night Fae, which, I mean, we can get into a massive, like, multiple hour dialogue about how I don't like the different Covenant systems, how I felt forced to play Night Fae, how Night Fae wasn't what I want to go. I want to go as Maldraxxus. I thought Adaptive Swarm would be cool. I thought that, like, having the, like, necro stitching, the, like, little side event that you could make a, like, little helper that would help you in World Quest, I thought that that was one of the coolest mechanics. Baby, you're playing a Balanced Druid. You're not allowed to do that. And just, like, you weren't ever really allowed to choose and pick what you could or wanted to play. It's like you were really choosing between being optimal or suboptimal, and the numbers in many cases were just wildly different between the top and the bottom, and that's even without bringing up the Sims. It was just crazy, which brings me to my next point, which is the stupid systems. Whenever I talk about this, I feel like it's necessary for me to say this because people might misconstrue what I mean. Blizzard has some of the best developers in the entire world, and their work can and should be respected. And I do respect it, and I think very highly of them. They are undeniably talented. That is not what I'm saying. Now, for the turnaround, where I need to be super honest, there needs to be a stop to these non-stop systems on systems on systems. To me, as a third party coming in new into WoW, it was absurd at this point. Yes, you want to keep the game fresh. I get what you were going for. And yes, adding abilities ad infinitum is not scalable and it's not possible because it just gets so unmanageable. Like, how many abilities? Are you going to add like 2 each X pack? Even that scales crazy. Are you going to add 5 X pack? What are you going to remove? And it gets stupid after a game being out for 15 years, the idea of like, okay, every year we're going to add like 5 abilities. Like, no, that's not feasible. But this current approach, to me, is not good. Legion artifact weapons, for instance, I checked them out, and that was such an intensely cool system. Like, it's like taking Final Fantasy XIV's relic weapons, which if you check out this channel, you know I am a so-called relic hunter, and I've been completing all of the relic weapons for, like, myself, because I've always done it, but also, like, content now. But it's like Final Fantasy XIV's relic grind, but on steroids that can change how your class plays. It was so cool to me when I was reading up on this system. And then I looked at the Covenant system after that, and I felt... I honestly felt let down. I felt like I wanted to play years ago in Legion. I felt like I didn't want to play right now. I felt like I wanted to just turn the clock back on just WoW and be like, okay, now I'm playing in Legion. Yay, this is so exciting. I'm just gonna be honest, most of these aren't even a choice. Like, take a Necrolord Hunter, where you could use their Covenant ability for some weird subpar AoE and a honestly pretty useless shield. Yeah, you can argue there's fringe uses, but in general, useless. Or you could go Night Fae and be able to gain a tremendously useful mobility ability, which as a Beastmaster Hunter, oh my god, I loved it. It was so big. And again, that's why I said the shield's not useful. In comparison to this mobility, not even in the same world. And you could also use that mobility ability in combat, which was super good. And then you get another ability, which is a tremendously earth-shatteringly powerful AoE. But again, that cycles back to balance, and that is something that, in this case with the systems and the balance, you can't really separate those points. Which gets me into another point, which is the illusion of choice. People tell me Final Fantasy XIV doesn't give you choices. Nor does World of Warcraft. Being played properly, it doesn't give you choices. There are sets of talents that you take for particular content. There are sets of Covenant abilities for you to take for a particular set of content. There are sets of conduits that you take for sets of particular content. Sure, you can be a little spicy and be like, oh, well, you know what, I grinded more soul ass this week and I hate my life and I'm making another legendary, and I'm gonna be a little spastic this week and take it instead, because now I can get my best in slot for Mythic plus legendary, not just my best in slot for raid. And so it's really an illusion. You're not actually playing differently than the lists. You are gonna literally gimp yourself from picking some of these lesser options. And so you would hear from a lot of World of Warcraft YouTubers, oh my god, I need to make this choice of my raid legendary or my Mythic plus legendary, and obviously I'm making the raid legendary because my raid team needs me and I'm using that to make content. I mean, it's like at the end of the day, you're not picking that legendary because you want to be special in Mythic plus. You're picking that because it's your best for raid and you're prioritizing raid. It's not a choice. Or alternatively, show me a Fury Warrior who has all best in slot legendaries, conduits, covenants, talents, blah blah blah, and compare their output to a equally geared warrior, a Fury Warrior, obviously the same specialization, with the worst legendary, conduits, covenants, talents, blah blah blah. Show me how big of a difference it is. Or if small, show me how small it is. It's a bizarre difference from everything I've seen. It's huge difference. So this really leads to it being an illusion of choice. You don't actually get to pick. You pick either essentially between being optimal and being able to play your character effectively, or being subpar. That's what you're really choosing. I don't think people are gonna really willfully choose, I want to be bad at the game. Who's gonna do that? Now the sixth point is one that grinded me. There is no content, or just very little. I'm not even gonna apologize for it. No, I come from Final Fantasy XIV, and if I want to do something, I can take part in the extensive crafting system. I can go into the gold saucer for infinite mini games. Well, not literally infinite, but we have like Lords of Familiar. We have just so many different things. We have Triple Triad, and I'm digressing, but I can also go off and do something like hunts. I can do housing, or a massively longer list of things to do. But whenever I say that, people are like, oh, do you mean it? Relic grinds, alliance raids, farm extreme trials, mounts, and just literally so much more. I'm not even bluffing here. And all of the old content in 14 is also kept relevant through things like level sync and glamour options, such as I do recommend Heaven's Ward relics for many players. That is a whole set of content from years ago that is still extremely relevant content. You can also go down to do Lakshmi or Tsukiyomi Extreme for glam farms or roulettes, or World of Darkness, and these are just roulettes that are taking you into these different forms of content, really expanding all of the content that you can do. Like, each expansion is additive. So when I went to try Shadowlands, I was met by an honestly horrendous big wall of what am I meant to do here. There was, in my experience, almost nothing meaningful to do solo progression. Sure, I can do world quests for the stingiest amount of currency I've ever dealt with in a game. I mean, it's bad when you have me thinking if that statement that I just said is right, and thinking like, how bad was Silk Road? in 2021, I shouldn't be comparing your currency to Silk Road. I shouldn't be doing that. Respectfully, the amount of Stygia or whatever it was and Anima that I would use the Reservoir Anima to upgrade Covenant Sanctums, to be frank, should be absolutely embarrassing in 2021. Like, let's get into some of the details about World Quests. So, World Quests, let's say that I'd need to walk, because I'd need to walk from that flight path. But wait, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We need to go and get to that flight path that needs to go all the way through Oribos for God only knows what reason other than to literally piss away our time needlessly, and then it finally decides to fly down to the other one. And, in fact, add the entire slow flight system to another thing that I really didn't like about World of Warcraft. Compared to teleporting wherever, whenever, instantly in Final Fantasy XIV, what a brutal, agonizing slog this system was going into. And people are going to disagree with me, and that's totally good. I totally respect your opinion, 100%. It doesn't make your world seem bigger with these flight paths. You're literally pissing away my time, and it's annoying. I want to get to a particular location to achieve a particular goal. Why am I still sitting in the same flight path after I literally get up, take a dump, and come back to my computer? Why am I still in that flight path? It's ridiculous. And this is a huge reason of why I even chose Valpyra on the Horde. More on that in a bit. But it's just because I just can't deal with the time wasting. My time is so precious to me. It's just so frustrating. And so I could go up, set up a tent, go somewhere else, and instantly return at a whim on Valpyra. This isn't a standard. And why isn't this a standard? So, cycling back to World Quests, once you get to the location, then you do the World Quest, which is not bad content in and of itself. I should say, I did actually enjoy the World Quest minigames, especially like the first dozen times that I did each. I'm not even joking here, that might sound sarcastic, but like the first dozen times, I was actually pretty into it. I thought it was cool, it was different, it broke up the pace. I liked it. But then you're awarded with 40 anima. And some of these upgrades for the Covenant Sanctum needed 15,000 reservoir anima to upgrade. Like the Venthier's party thing for the last upgrade required just that last upgrade. That's just one final step on a chain of steps. 15,000 just to upgrade that last one. That's insane. And you're giving me 40 for a world quest? But Reservoir Anima is also used to buy Covenant-specific unlocks. And it's horrible. It feels like such a deplorably stingy amount of currency to give out to players that it should honestly be embarrassing. And for the record, that is with me. My opinion on this is I actually did funnel enough anima to unlock the full mission table, and I even had the app on my phone until I literally deleted it a few days ago for the Wendy's app so that I could literally get some Wendy's with Neymett. And yes, literally ask Neymett. I literally did that in the car the other night. I am not joking. I literally deleted it so I could install the Wendy's app. But, like, cycling back, where is the content? Mythic Plus, you have Raid, you have some PvP, and what else? Is this it? Like, what am I missing here? And I mean, just to like iterate some points I said before, so I can go to Raid and be told I can't see colors and shapes and mocked for playing Beastmaster Hunter. I can try and do Mythic Plus where I'm going to be declined for groups because I'm playing a Beastmaster Hunter, and then I can have people brick my key, or I can have PvP where I have a massively imbalanced, not skillful game mode. What am I missing here? There's no real meaningful, in my opinion, solo progression content. Instead, it is incredibly frustrating, as I just listed off just there. I just riled that off at the top of my head, like, it's frustrating. And plus, like, Raid, Mythic Plus, and PvP even needs you to have a preformed group. I can't log in at, say, 3 o'clock a.m. or even, like, 12 o'clock a.m. when I'm, like, unable to sleep and meaningfully progress myself. There's nothing that I can really do. I mean, maybe I could sell things on the market board, I guess, but that's not engaging content to me. So I'm left with, like, where's the content? I'm supposed to just stand there at a market board? That's my content? Gear progression is next on the list, and when you think about an MMORPG, this is so important to get right. Horrible raid drops from when I was raiding. Might have changed, but when I was playing World of Warcraft, this was depressing. There doesn't seem to also be any sort of books or token system like Final Fantasy XIV has, where you get like tokens that you can exchange for gear after like 2 months or like 8 clears to get that piece of gear that you want, just because RNG decided you aren't worthy. Basically, you get the drop or not, and it really sucks. Mythic Plus loot in the dungeon itself is trash. You don't even run Mythic Plus, really, in my experience, for the loot in the dungeon. Literally, you aren't running Mythic Plus for the loot actually dropped in the dungeon, unless for whatever bizarre reason you're running plus 14 keys for like a 208. I'm just going off of memory. It might be 208, it might be 210. I think 210 is if you're doing a plus 15. I might be wrong. Basically, how to say it? If you manage to trick the group leader into accepting you with an item level under 2.8 or whatever it is for plus 14, I don't know where to begin with my genuine surprise, especially like after like the first month or so. Like people, the expectations for like a plus 14 went up and up and up in item level. Like you would just be screened. Like they would never let you into your party usually. And I also say that being declined as a almost like 220 item level Beastmaster Hunter months ago from being like in plus 5s. So PvP gearing, ironically enough, was also the best way to gear. Until, as my earlier point on PvP indicated, PvP was so clogged that the developer set the average matchmaking ratio curve so low. Like, they set the matchmaking curve so low. Like, they adjusted it that, like, okay, we're gonna have, like, a, I don't know, maybe they have, like, a bell curve distribution. Just so low on that total MMR that I was getting completely curb stomped by people in 220 plus item level gear. So, no, not even PvP gearing really was accessible to most people. You'd really, at least in my experience, and I think that this is generous, by the way, I think that 210 item level is where you could really peak in terms of like solo progression or like normal progression without like other means. 233 is the best in slot item level, only obtainable for mythic rating, so that is quite a big difference. That translates into a huge power disparity. So really how you geared was all dependent on unlocking a weekly vault by doing arbitrary activities like run 10 mythic plus to key level 14 or higher for a chance, emphasis on that, chance, no, actually I'm wrong on that. You will guaranteed, if you unlock it, get a 226 piece of loot, but what it is RNG. Let me correct myself there. But I do want to say, like, how to say it? You try to unlock as many of these little like wells or nodes or whatever in this vault, this weekly vault, and you're really hoping that, okay, I have like all of these unlocked to a 226 piece, and then you're really hoping and praying to God, like, okay, please make this happen, please make it that this is the piece of gear that I need, or like a weapon upgrade or something, whatever you need in particular that week. And honestly, my experience that I went through is so many weeks in a row, I'd get done that Mythic Plus grind and my vault was filled with garbage. I really had no agency or control over my character progression, which was infuriating and oftentimes left me feeling like I may as well have not done that round of Mythic Plus and raiding. I literally did the raiding and Mythic Plus for hours for literally no reason. It was a complete waste of time. And it was frustrating. So I had no books, no tokens, nothing. I was left with a piece of garbage that I either already had or a worse piece of gear. And that felt miserable to be like, well, I just spent like 7 hours doing that all last week. Are you kidding me? One of my last points I've really found frustrating was on race and class locks. People will probably attack me with, but here's the lore, throws a book at me. Here's the lore, throws another book at me. Oh my god, the lore. And I'm gonna be honest, you mean the lore that I literally still haven't seen a single World of Warcraft YouTuber or streamer actually crack open and actually read, instead having like auto-skipping add-ons blow through a lot of the time? And I should say I did actually pay a lot of attention to the lore as something I'll talk about in Kyrians if I get antsy enough. I will indicate, like, I paid attention to the lore. But like, seriously, what? Why are you impeding people from playing and having character agency over some kind of, I hate to say it, irrelevant lore bit? Like, to me, this would be like saying, okay, if you're a Hrothgar or you're a Rogadin or you're a Mikoti female, you can't be a scholar or a white mage because lore reasons. What? Like, if I want to play a human shaman, let me play a human shaman. Why is it too much to ask for that? Like, why can't I play a human shaman? What about a human druid? Are you telling me that no humans in all of World of Warcraft ever communed with nature? What? Or let's take other examples, like why out of all the races can Worgen not be monks? Why are they this weird exception? Which is really kind of ridiculous to me. I've tried to make sense of it, and I've heard like theories about like, okay, Gilneas didn't have a monk trainer, and now with the new player leveling experience on a completely different like new player island, I can't even remember the name of it, but like with that, how is that even logical at all? So, like, the real question is, why aren't we letting people play what they want to play on a race? Again, where is my agency as a player? Why do I not have control over my character? And this brings me to, like, my 9th point, which is, what about simply not being able to have all classes on one character with a simple change of gear? I fully acknowledge WoW is older than 14, and that makes sense, but the only reason, that is literally the only reason I give this a pass. It is extremely frustrating to me to have to do the exact same unlocks, exact same song and dance, it's the exact same stuff overall on multiple characters. Yes, in 14, you 100% need to grind up all the classes separately, like White Mage and Ass don't share levels, but that's very, very, very different. On 14, I have one character called Evyx on Gilgamesh with all my loot, all my gil, all my achievements, all my quests done. It has my personal private house, it has my FC, all my other unlocks, same guild, yada yada. I find it super frustrating because, take for instance, if I get a full set of, say, leather gear for my druid, why can't I just put on like the rogue daggers and go rogue? Or say monk, like in 14 we can do that. Why again am I being impeded from doing like Resto Druid and then Mistweaver Monk? Why can't I play that? Why do I not have the agency over being able to pick and choose and change? And it sucks because the answer is, oh wait, I can't do that because I can't play those different jobs on the same character, which makes my ability to adapt and transform as a player heavily hampered. Like in 14, I play all roles and just about every job excessively into the ground and back. Like lately I've been playing so much Samurai and Monk that I am just enamored with it. But that's kind of a tangent, but I can be in the same raid night as a ranged DPS as my slot. I can be changing from Machinist to Bard to Dancer, or if I'm healing, White Mage to Ass to Scholar, and soon to be the Sage too, with only changing a weapon. And of course there is a little bit of complication there, like some substats need jiggling, but that's a far cry different from being told I am only a Resto Shaman and only ever a Resto Shaman, and screw the idea that I could use that male armor on my Beastmaster Hunter, or that I could maybe play a different healer. It's like you are very pigeonholed, and you are really stripped of agency when you're playing World of Warcraft, and that was so frustrating to me. Actually, let's end on this last point. Factions. For whatever reason, there are still people clinging desperately onto this idea that the faction divide is a good thing. And to me, coming from 14, it doesn't make sense. Why would you actively make the decision to cleave your player base based upon what race they want to play? This is leading to North America being so brutally Horde biased, with anyone taking content like raiding or Mythic Plus seriously needing to go Horde to really support that kind of gameplay style. And absolutely sure, Alliance has some. I am not saying Alliance is devoid of it. I played Alliance, so no. But it is much smaller, that it is in comparison significantly more difficult. And again, why are we making things more difficult on ourselves? I should say people are like going into like the deep lore about like, oh, the history is that like this particular racial was really OP for this particular fight. I can't even remember the exact ones. I think it was like the goblin racial for like some jetpack jump was super powerful and like kill Jaden or something. Again, probably wrong, but it was something like that. And so the guilds moved to Horde. Remember that they also nerfed the dwarf racials apparently that could remove bleeds from like Castle Nathria raid. I did hear about that, so interesting. But the fact is the deep lore went and said that, and so the big guilds moved, and so you had other people come alongside with them, and then you had people being like, oh well, I want to raid with the big raids. Oh my god, I want to follow this person, I want to follow that person. Oh my god, I'm such a big Method fan, I'm such a big Limit fan, I'm such a big Echo fan. And it was like this history slowly siphoned more people into Horde. I'm gonna be honest, deep history is interesting. I do think it's interesting. It is a cool practical example of sociology and culture pressures making people make a big decision, because I do think that being like, I'm not going to interact with this half of the player base as that I was before, that's a pretty fairly substantial decision, especially when you look at some of the costs of faction transfers. But I digress. Basically for me, if I want to play a bearded human dude character and raid, I'm kind of out to lunch. I don't like blood elves. They are, for many reasons, way not my thing. So I guess I can go Zandalari Troll, which for whatever reason don't have beard options, so I actually really hate how they look, which leads me to not really being into horde races at all. So what is the answer to if I want to play a bodybuilding male character with a beard that isn't an animal or orc, which to me kind of still looks like an animal? Like, I don't know, it like, orc's not right to me. Is it Tauren? No. Troll? Absolutely not. They also need a chiropractor desperately. Orcs are really close, but they still look really way off base for me, and so they didn't look nearly as good as, say, human characters. It just doesn't look the same to me. Zandalari Troll? No. I'll sound silly, but I really do need a beard on my character, or it feels super awkward playing with it, and I really can't identify with it. I couldn't with the clean shaven. It felt like I wasn't playing something that I resonated with. It felt really weird to me, which really landed me on Vulpera, where I could be super trolly because the Vulpera memes are infinite. And what did the fox say? And get the perk out of teleportation tents that I mentioned earlier. Actually, one more thing. The storyline, I do want to make an exception here, that the Venthyr storyline, I loved it. Whoever did that, honest to goodness, made it such a good, intensely awesome experience. If you play WoW still and you want a good story experience, I 100% recommend Venthyr. Give it a shot, they are honestly amazing. But it is a massive Nicki Minaj-sized butt. Some of the other storylines actually really put me off. Kyrians, no. Kyrians are a big no. I don't even want to play that Covenant because fundamentally the writing was just, it was creepy. It creeped me out. It really made me feel creepy. I'm not saying it's objectively creepy, but to me it was really creepy. I'm not trying to be too spoilery, but the fundamental of the writing of the Kyrians was that there's this idea that you should give up your memories and your past identity in order to be a good, angelic person. Honestly, if you replace the angels and the feathers and the flowers with like a hellscape and like demons with horns going, I'm a demon, that would fit better to the story than angels. Like, some of these memories are even like memories of the past, like loved ones. And yes, even loved ones. Like, I remember during the main story questline, I needed to literally dispel this Tauren's loved ones out of like existence. And I'm like, what? What? What did you make me do? That's how messed up this is. And I mean, that's from me paying attention to the lore. Because again, I come from 14 and the lore really is great. And so I paid attention to this lore and I'm like, oh my god, I wish I didn't. Because it was so disturbing to me. Like, you need to click them one by one. Pop, pop, pop. Wife gone. Person that you did this with. Person with that. Gone, gone, gone. And it's like those memories of the loved ones, of trials and tribulations. They were personified as being evil and literally turned into monsters, and I hated it. I genuinely despised it, and I felt so frustrated doing it. Like, hear me out for a second. As someone who has had to deal with very, very serious mental health problems, like from my essay in the past, I don't want to bring it up in this video, but yeah, non-consensual. That was, again, nope, moving on. But this actually really pissed me off. It's a huge part of what leads people down a destructive path is simply ignoring or repressing or quote-unquote removing their past experiences. And these people, really the ones that go down the most destructive paths, they never really learn how to deal with it, and so they never really evolve and gain a toolbox of skills to deal with it and try and accept and embrace what happened. So this kind of moves on to the next point, is with the Kyrians, is how they wrote the so-called villains that just wanted their memories of their loved ones was being evil, destroying, attacking things, rather than as fair people wanting to just remember who they loved and their original lives and who was like their original sons and daughters. And it's just like, no, apparently it's a great idea to have some crazy villain be the representative of this that believes the jailer's Kool-Aid, and to make them look like unhinged loonies because they want to remember the name of their wife or husband or children. What the fuck? What? So I really don't like the Kyrians, and the way that they were written genuinely left such a bitter, poor taste in my mouth that all these months later, I'm still upset about the Kyrians and the fact that they made me do that multiple times as I was leveling. It's like, no, that is not how you handle mental health. I think that this is such a poor portrayal, or negative events, or positive events like loved ones. It's so messed up to me. Actually, one more thing. Torghast and the Maw. I'm gonna keep it short. Unfun, tedious, brutal, slow, with literally no mount in the Maw, and the insane mob density is gonna make you really make sure you have a terrible slog of a time. Easily two of the worst forms of content I have ever played in any game ever. If your goal was to make the player feel like they were trapped in hell, you achieved it. You knocked that out of the park. You completely encaptured it. You got that feeling. You definitely captured that feeling. Actually, this is for me in editing again, it's just like, I want to throw in a point about gearing, because people are like, oh my god, World of Warcraft, everything's about gear. I'm gonna do this as its own separate video, but I don't get it. Like, I literally was given, like, the money in order to purchase a whole bunch of WoW tokens for science, and I'm gonna just push that as its own separate video. But it's like, you can literally buy gear off of the auction house at 226 item level, which the best in slot is 226 unless you're doing the 2 last mythic raids where it's 233. But it's like, you can literally just buy 226 pieces off the market board. And then there's actually an entire economy around boosting communities where you can turn in, like, it was like 100k or so gold in order to get carried through mythic plus 15s. And then you would basically be given rewards for the mythic vault. And so it's like, you're gonna tell me that gearing really matters that much in this game when you can literally swipe a credit card and get geared out? What? Like, I'm not gonna say that, like, I have an aversion to, like, gearing out, but I just find it very paradoxical to say that gearing is such a monumentally important part of the game, but then kind of flip that on its head and be like, oh, but you can swipe your credit card and then you can get 226 item level gear. It's like, what? Dude, what? So the long story short is, just bring this to a close. I could actually probably continue because there were some other things that really rubbed me the wrong way, like so many bad things. But what I'm going to say is that I had a lot of reasons to quit World of Warcraft, and so I tried so intensely hard to make it work, that these experiences I shared here aren't even a point of pride. Like, as I was going through this video, I noticed that I was getting a little hot at times. It's not something that I liked. It sucks. I wanted to make it work. I want to have another game to log in to play. I want to, like, even make content on it. But now we're here, months later. My sub ran out a while ago, and I don't see anything, even in 9.1, to bring me to ever resubscribe, let alone re-download. Because, like, another reason is, like, my hard drive isn't even that big. Like, it's like I would rather fill that with, like, 100 or whatever gigabytes of, like, footage than World of Warcraft. So my sub ran out a while ago, and I don't see anything even in 9.1 bringing me to download, sub, install, play, or whatever. It's like Morma and Torghast miss me with that shit.